So good morning. So we're good Tuesday morning after Memorial Day weekend. So I do want to so with every morning. So I did have people mute on the way in, and I'm gonna mute everybody now. So as you have questions that pop up, you can either throw them into the chat like always, or raise your hand, and we have a couple of people. Ida is on and can monitor for hands being raised, and JC is for the most part monitoring the chat. So, and she is also actually any questions that haven't been asked previously. She's taking note of those questions so that as they come up, Chelsea is talking with US Ed and asking those questions, and we'll await their reply. I do want to know, I threw up because we have gotten a number of questions on, I don't have access to the GEM application to do the application. So I did throw up the CARES Act webpage into the chat, and on that page is a number of contact for the CARES Act, which includes Gary Seekin, who can give you that access for this funding.
But what we know right now is that now every business manager has access to the portal. So many of you have reached out to say you'll be in charge of this application. You should be able to log in. And if you can't, you can reach out to Gary, or you can email Tyler or me, and we'll help you right away. We're excited to announce that one SAU has applied for funding. The ESSERF team will actually be meeting later today to review their application. So I know that some of you are going to hold off, and as a reminder, you are more than welcome to wait to submit your application, but when you do submit it, we'll receive a notification so that we can review it as a team. Additionally, if you need support with logging in once you have your login credentials, please email me directly. Most of you I've noticed that are going in and looking at it haven't had any trouble, which means you're familiar with the GEM system. So we will not take one weekly meeting to go through that. But if you're new to the role and new to GEM, please email me and we can talk. I received a lot of questions last week about PPE. And so I just want to address those questions here and give you the information that I do have. So PPE, the conversations that are occurring are happening at the ESCA directors level, curriculum coordinators, as well as with the superintendent. So the definition around PPE, what should be used, if you can be a part of bulk purchasing, all of that really needs to go to Jonathan Shapiro, Maine's director of the Maine School Safety Center. Of course, I appreciate you reaching out, but I am simply going to forward you to Jonathan because he is our expert and he will give you answers to those questions. Now, if your question is related to, could I put this in my application? The answer is, and will always be, yes, right? Because PPE would be related to COVID-19 and our FAQ documents support that. So you have that answer in writing. Another question that's come up quite a bit last week, I think because people are starting to put together their applications, is do I need to go out for public comment? A public comment is a process in which when you apply for ESEA funds, you need to put your application, your ideas out there in the world to give people a chance to review it, to analyze it, and give you feedback. We did hear back from the U.S. Department of Education last week. That is the only question they have answered, and the answer is no. You do not need to go out for public comment for ESSERF funds. Is the department, see them coming in quickly, is the department going to offer any PD for custodial staff? That is a really specific question to the Maine School Safety Center. We have it down and we will send that to Jonathan. And Mitch, we can CC you on the response we receive. Can we include a stipend for the Easter lead in the grant? It's going to go back to how you connect it to COVID-19. And that's not really something that I can talk through here for everyone because everyone's situation is going to be different. But if you have a justification for it and you want to include it in your application, we will be able to review it and consider it. We will also put that in the questions to the feds because they were very clear with SEAs about how the admin portion of the funding can be used. One private message, when is the application due? There is not a deadline. We've met our requirement to allocate the funds within 1 year. So I know many of you likely are talking internally about waiting until you get through a budget season or just giving yourself a few more weeks, and you are absolutely welcome to take a few more weeks or even months if that's what your community needs. We will not start emailing you and calling you to ask where your application is. We'll let you work at your own pace. Do you have any private messages, Tyler? I think I've covered
I don't.
Okay.
So I'll say while it's a little bit quiet, my plan, so we're holding this meeting today for both groups, and I was not planning on holding a special business manager one this week, and part of that is there's actually, so the same group that helped us with putting together the per pupil spending for ESSA, as part of ESSA, is putting on a webinar later this week on Thursday. So I did send that out to business managers as to, as they're talking about lessons learned from the from the financial crisis in school budgeting. So I sent that out as just a something that they can go to, they can listen in, and so given already, like offering that up, I think we'll hold off on this week on having a separate meeting, and then we'll have a separate meeting starting again next week. Oh, and I do still have a couple of people logging in. And I don't have any other questions still, so.
Tyler, there are a couple of questions in the group chat.
So so Chelsea went over the one from Diana, but Diana, you have your hand raised. Do you have a separate question?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear her answer to that question.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So Diana was asking, can we include a stipend for the ESSER lead in the grant application?
Yeah, and my response was one, that if you have a justification and how it is related to COVID-19, we will absolutely review it. But secondly, the SEA application for this funding had very clear rules around admin costs and how you might determine them, and then whether or not they can include certain aspects of paying someone for their work. So with that being said, it is a question that we already have down and we'll be sending to our program coordinator with the U.S. Department of Education to be sure that we are in compliance with all of the assurances for this funding.
Thanks, Chelsea. Is that guidance available somewhere? Is that guidance regarding admin expenses available for us to read?
Then it's only for the SEA. So the assurances that I'm referring to were in the SEA's application, and that application is available online, and I can put a link in the chat so people can read it. But some of the things that they note are executive salaries, bonuses, things like that. But because they've mentioned it in assurances, we need to make sure that we get in writing their response for any admin costs at the local level.
Okay.
I'll give you that in the chat. Oh, go ahead.
So I'm thinking along the lines of we're asking this person to take responsibility for the application and the reports. So it would not be a huge amount of money, but it would be something to compensate the person who typically is our ESEA person because we're adding additional duties. Does that seem like it would pass the straight face test?
I am trying to be so careful to not share, my opinions and be clear that whatever we get in writing from the feds, because I don't want anyone to have an issue in an audit in a year or in 2 years. So I will put it in writing and I will work to get us an answer. I think I mentioned to this group last week, our program officer called me and she said, continue to send me daily emails and call me because the pressure you put on me helps me get you answers. So I'll add it to the list and I will get an answer to you as soon as possible. Another question that has come up now several times, which I know is an important one, can you use the funding for an electronic board that would communicate information to the community outside of the school? And that's also a part of the questions that went in about 3 weeks ago and continue to be resent until we get an answer.
So we'll wait just a couple of moments to make sure people have had a chance to ask any questions that they need to. If you want us to show anything, we can try to do that. So we want to make sure that you have the information that you need so that, as you're looking at the CARES Act funding, you can, do the work that you can do at this point until you, if you don't currently know how you're going to use the money, so you can make those plans for the future. Oh, yep. So Jennifer is asking, can we discuss, look over how the function codes line up with the different federal programs and the list of allowable uses on the application? So let me, Chelsea, is our test unit? No, it's open. It is.
No, it's not. I could forward you. You're looking for the login and password for Pine Tree?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, 1 second. Let me send it.
So, Aaron, no, Aaron's asking, have I sent out the Easter Fund Code document you're working on? I have not yet. I'm hoping I'll try to finish it up this afternoon. I haven't had another moment to work on it. So I will send something out. It may not. It may be something you have to scroll through temporarily if I can't get the additional the table of contents in it. So Chelsea, I think I can do it just by looking at it through admin. So Denise is asking, what was the answer to Mitchell's question?
And the answer to Mitchell's question was that that's another one. We want to be really careful here. Tyler and I are program and finance people. We want to make sure that questions around safety go to the Maine School Safety Center. So the answer is, we are sending that to our director, his name is Jonathan Shapiro, and the Maine School Safety Center will provide more information to us, and then we'll circle back, and we can also CC Nick on that email.
So we had a question earlier, discuss, look over how the function codes line up with the different federal programs and the list of allowable uses on the application. So one thing is not all of them have a nice, clear line up. So I did just, I mean, so for those of you that haven't necessarily logged into your application yet, after you've done the short portion around explaining how, you know, more broadly how you're going to use the funding, then you have to give more specific dollar amounts as to how that funding is going to be used. So the way we did this is to partially align it to how our federal handbook works as to how expenses are coded. So there's good and bad to this. So there isn't, when we look through this and we look at regular instruction, special ed, CTE, or program 4000 for non-regular programming, and then program 6000, and then we go down into the other function codes. These don't necessarily line up perfectly or very well with the categories within the application. But what they do well is match up to our handbook, which then we're trying to provide that additional guidance as to, as you're looking through each of these, you can know how to code. We'll provide you the guidance on how to code it, though some of that will be developed as we continue on and we know what types of activities you're actually trying to do. So a couple of them are really easy, like program 2000 for special ed, that will align perfectly with our IDA federal program. Program 3000 for CTE aligns perfectly with the Perkins. Program 6000 aligns very nicely with the adult ed. But then, so ESEA as a program, because there's such a number of different varied programs or allowable activities within ESEA, there's really no one single area where those activities all line up. So some of the activities will line up very nicely within program 1000. But then there's some allowable activities for professional development, which are going to go into the staff support down here. And then there's a number of other programs. So as those come in, we'll update the other guidance. And I don't have the document open, or I would I could share that document as well. So I do understand. I mean, these don't all nicely align with the listed programs within within the allowable activities, and so we're trying to do some of that legwork to then provide you the matchup through some separate guidance. So let's see. So Jennifer is asking, special ed and CTE is clearly labeled. For example, what is included in regular instruction? ESEA. Okay, so Jennifer is asking, what is non-regular programming? And so there are actually a number of activities within non-regular programming. And so what I'm going to actually, what I can do, let me see. If you give me just a moment, I'll bring up the other document. So if we scroll down to non-regular programming, and so some of these are just federal terms that are in the federal handbook, and I suppose we could have made it a little better term, but so non-regular programming would include our English language learners and expenditures around to support them, alternative at-risk education programs, summer school is in there, other instructional programs. So when you see something like that, they're leaving a more broad category. So things that may not fit in other places to allow some flexibility for that. And then we do also have, so I think last fall we added before and after school instructional programs. So we knew that there was a number of, or we had heard from school districts that they had before and after school instructional programs. And we could have put it into this other instructional programming, but feeling though that it might become more and more of this type of programming, we added it as its own category. And then also in the non-regular programming is gifted and talented. So hopefully that answers some of the questions around, or answers the question around what's non-regular programming. So that's what I had for, so Cheryl's asking for the private school portion, will this be a pass-through and need to detail what they will be using the funds for?
It will not be a pass-through. We must
Yep.
follow all of the rules for equitable services as in ESSA. So in ESEA section 117, just as you have for ESEA every year before, you will need to go through the consultation process, determining what the project will look like, and the SAU must always remain the fiscal agent. So it is not a pass-through, and funding can never be sent directly to a private school. I know the question that Mitch posted in the chat has come up again. I just received another private message. Folks are coming on, throughout their morning, because I know there's lots of things on everyone's calendar, 10 to 11. The answer to Mitch's question is simply, that's a question we need to give our experts. And so that question will go directly to the director of Maine's School Safety Center. His name is Jonathan Shapiro, and the answer will be shared with the entire group when we have it.
So I don't have any other questions, Chelsea. Do you have any other private messages?
Yeah, I have one more private message that just came in. And the private schools projects be included in our application. So once you have your consultation with the private schools, you will then have an idea of what their project is, and you will need to include that in your application. That concept will also need to be approved in the pages that Tyler has been sharing with everyone. There will be also a page where you will put in the information around consultation, but it should be clear in the narrative that this is the specific thing that the private school will be working on, and that you'll be working with them to complete. Can Chelsea please post a link where we can see the DOE guidance for the application? The guidance for the application, I think this person is talking about, JEM typically creates a handbook. Because of how quickly this has gone out, he has not yet created a handbook. So if you are new to this process and you need help, or if you'd like someone to walk you through the application, please send me a direct email and we will find the time to do that together. So again, because this application went out in record time from creation to rollout, there is not a handbook around each of the pages. It's also only a few pages. So we will probably set aside about 30 minutes if that's something that you feel that would be beneficial, and we can walk you through the application.
Okay, so if there are no other questions, I think we can we should be able to wrap this meeting up for today. Thank you everybody for coming again today.